legislation.
Paul Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A somewhat underwhelming speech from the other side here for the second reading of the budget measures miscellaneous fiscal issues bill. And Mr. Robinson asked, where is the plan? Where is the plan? Again, he seems to think, I think the problem is that they don't like steady, sensible, predictable government policy which everybody can understand where the government's from, and it's built up of lots of little steps which together bring the economy in the right direction. Theirs is the politics of the grand gesture, which somehow you're going to wave your wand in a transformational way, and if you overturn monetary policy and start changing the very foundations of what has been part of the successful New Zealand economy, if you suddenly upturn the tax system and bring in the capital gains tax, if you overturn the electricity sector and start nationalising that, all these radical things that they are proposing, I don't quite understand what the basis is for when we have a strong, successful economy, so much stronger than so many other parts of the development world today, where we're looking at the books being back in surplus well ahead of many other countries, where we're seeing growth at 4%, where we're seeing wages rising faster than inflation, and more money being made available in this budget for families, for businesses, and for the most vulnerable. That seems to me to be a plan that's working, and a plan that's working very well, and a plan that we're all proud of on this side of the House. And again, I do want to remind the House of the whopper by David Cunliffe in his budget speech, where he said that Labor produced 9 surpluses in a row. Well, that's rubbish, because the final one ended up being a deficit of $3.9 billion, because they had increased spending by 12% in 1 year. And it was 50% over the last 5 years of government, and that's how a Labor government works. Yes, it's true, to give them their merit, they were reasonably disciplined in the first 2 terms of the Labor government under Clark, but the third term it was a runaway train, and spending went out of control, and they left us with an economy pregnant with a decade of deficits, and this government has had the fortitude to get us back to where we are today after 6 hard years, and the hard work of New Zealanders, New Zealand businesses, New Zealand people all around the country from the top to the bottom, bringing us back to surplus today, and that's something we can celebrate. And this bill is about some specific details, but we shouldn't lose sight of the broader picture, and the broader picture is a very successful one. I do want to just talk about briefly what we mentioned, the temporary suspension of dumping duties, and again, that was mocked on the other side by Mr. Robertson, saying it's just a small thing, that having cheaper nails is a terrible thing. But this is all about a plan which brings together a whole number of issues that help bring about affordability of housing. The most important one, and who would have thought? I didn't think it was imaginable that we would be able to work so successfully with the Auckland Council in terms of bringing the special housing accords together, and to see upwards of 30,000 houses planned to be built in Auckland over the next little while, which will produce so much more supply, which is what we're needing, and which will have much better result than any some sudden introduction of a capital gains tax, as if somehow raising the taxes on all the businesses, small businesses in the country, all the farmers, everybody that you can name who's put their money, risked their money in an entrepreneurial venture, they're suddenly going to be hit by a capital gains tax. Somehow that is going to make housing in Auckland more affordable, just as it has in Australia and elsewhere in the world. Seems as a hard one to follow. So our policy of focusing on a whole range of issues on housing affordability, starting with getting more access to land, more supply in housing, and then working our way through all the specific issues. It's hard and detailed work, but cost of building is a important part of what makes housing expensive in New Zealand. The Productivity Commission, when they did their thorough review of housing, did point out that New Zealand materials were more expensive than in Australia, and so we're doing what every good government should do, and drill down into the details, and this piece of legislation, removing duties and tariffs on building products, will increase competition and reduce costs in the industry, saving Kiwis around $3,500 to build a standard New Zealand home. And the member opposite mocks, well, I don't know about you, but I prefer to have $3,500 in my pockets than not. So, yes, I'm very familiar with the general costs of housing, but I don't go into that detail. But on that basis, Mr. Speaker, on this, heat pumps are a lot cheaper than that, actually. You just got to shop around. And what we'll find is that this government's made a great contribution in housing affordability with this temporary suspension of dumping duties. And on that basis, Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
Moana Maki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.